2024. New year, slightly different me. While I've enjoyed doing reviews for the past 2 years, I feel like I've been too predictable and formulaic. When you see a video of mine pop up, you probably know how it's going to go down. I introduce a show and episode, I pick it apart like pita bread, and then I give my final score. I guess it's been working for me, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But then again, variety is a spice of life. And since the last time I made a countdown was 3 years ago, that's what we're going to do today. This countdown is going to be my top 10 least favorite Drake and Josh episodes. Drake and Josh is the first show I've ever reviewed an episode from. And spoilers, this won't be the last time I talk about them here. It also remains my favorite Schneider's Bakery show, and it really has withstood the test of time, even if both Drake Bell and Dan Schneider are no longer as respectable as they once were. However, as we've learned over the years, good shows can make bad episodes, and this show is no exception. I had a hard time deciding if I really wanted to make this list, since many of the episodes this show that I didn't like weren't even that bad, just plain and mediocre. But they still have things that I like about them, so that's why I'm calling this list my least favorite episodes instead of my most hated or the worst. Oh, but don't get me wrong, there are bad ones, and you'll find out which they are soon. So if you're ready, we're counting down the top 10 least favorite episodes of Drake and Josh.
You've all heard me tell you a lot of stories about me and Josh, but this time, I want to talk to your little brothers and sisters.
Freeze. You're under arrest.
You know, the fun thing about making lists like these is that you rarely get what you expect. This is an episode I barely remember the title to, even if the episode's events I remember vividly. Moreover, I remember liking this episode as a kid, but now that I'm grown and more observant, I realize that this episode's got some issues. The Battle of Panthatar is a Season 4 episode where Drake and Josh's rich friend Thornton invites him to his 16th birthday party, where he says he hired cast members of Galaxy Wars to reenact the titular Battle of Panthatar. However, Drake mistakenly makes out with Thornton's girlfriend Maria, and as a result he bans Drake and Josh from the party. So then the brothers have to think of a way to get themselves back in. The main problem with this episode is actually Thornton himself. While he's within his rights to be pissed off at Drake, he becomes very unreasonable and is unwilling to forgive him, and even arbitrarily bears a grudge with Josh, who didn't even do anything. Even when Drake gives Thornton an autographed Beatles vinyl, he still won't let them in. Not to mention the episode gets padded out by the brothers staying outside the party hall waiting to get in to no avail. But now what stops me from hating it is the ending, where the brothers disguise themselves as the Red Skynets to get the Beatles vinyl back, but then they're forced to reenact the fight. And honestly, that bit is very entertaining to watch since they obviously don't know what they're doing. It does end on a positive note, with Drake getting the vinyl back and both of them even scoring dates. Overall, this episode is very middle of the road, and I really am not clamoring to see it again. Good thing this is Thornton's only appearance, because he did not leave a good first impression.
You made that whole story up.
No.
You started that fight.
You calling me a liar?
I ain't calling you a truther.
Hey, that loves me an unpopular opinion. As it goes, a good story can save bad comedy, but good comedy can't save a bad story. This episode's a definition of that. So what is Foam Finger about? Josh remembers a fight he got into over a foam finger with another kid several years ago at a Padres game. Well, it just so happens that the kid he fought with was Drake, and Josh's grudge apparently reawakens now that he knows who did it. First of all, this premise is so ridiculous. I can understand Josh not thinking fondly of the event after all these years, but to continue bearing a grudge over it? I don't know, that's not a very Josh thing to do, at least not to the lengths they go to here. It is interesting how we see that the brothers are unreliable narrators, since each of them remembered the other but being way douchier than they actually were. Of course, they get into a fight again, which results in Josh ripping up the foam finger, so the rest of the episode involves the brothers at each other's throats and ruining everyone else's lives. Now, the both of them bickering is nothing new, it's pretty much the one thing that's guaranteed about this show, but this episode fails to make their fighting entertaining here. In fact, it's way too believable. Drake and Josh don't fight like brothers, they fight like a married couple who've grown sick of each other, and it's rather unpleasant to watch. Later, the concession stand runner who was there that day reveals the truth, and that Megan, as a toddler, threw a cookie at the back of Josh's head when no one was looking, causing the brothers to fight. Now, they do make up completely at the end, and the ending is overall satisfying, so that's why it's so low on the list, coupled with the good jokes throughout the episode. But had they not played their fight so straight, this episode might not have found itself on this list at all.
Hello, I'm Dr. Phyllis Tupper, and welcome to Dr. Phyllis.
If there's one thing that always ends up polarizing in sitcoms besides introducing new characters to keep it alive, it's clip shows. And it turns out this show isn't safe from that curse. The Dr. Phyllis show is just a plot device for showing all the moments the brothers argued, which would be fine, but here's the thing. Why would we need a clip show for that? Drake and Josh argue literally all the fucking time. Just make a new episode about that. Yeah, the moments they show are good, but clip shows in general are just shameless filler. It's even worse when some of the moments are from episodes of the same season. I understand that new episodes don't air back to back, but they don't air so sporadically that you just forget about them. And this problem becomes even more prevalent when you get the DVD, which many people did back then. It'd be one thing if it was a blooper episode, since everyone likes watching professionals fuck up, but highlight reels like these need to be very entertaining, and this one fails to meet that requisite. It's just the brothers going over all the times they bickered and then not even really coming to an understanding by the end. Not that it would matter, since they're gonna resume their tradition by the next episode, but still. The only thing that even remotely catches my attention is when Dr. Phyllis beats up the brothers because Drake unwittingly insulted her daughter. Outside of that, you're better off just marathoning the show rather than watching this.
Okay, guess I just thought you'd be a little nicer to me since I paid for your traffic ticket. But whatever.
Well, this is some familiar territory, isn't it? If you're new to my channel, driver's license was the subject of my first ever review. In that review, I called it my least favorite episode. Well, that obviously isn't the case anymore, since it's clearly not the #1 entry. The fact that it's on the list at all means I haven't gained any newfound positivity towards it. So let's see what I can do with a revisit. In this episode, Josh gets his license and gets a ticket for running a stop sign the same night. Drake pays it off so Walter doesn't revoke his driving privileges, and then spends the rest of the episode manipulating Josh into being his taxi. Which I guess is not too out of character for him, but Drake gets very mean with it and suffers practically no consequences for it in the end. Well, I tell a lie. Drake did get consequences for it, since Josh beats him up after getting another ticket, but now Josh is back at square one, and I'm not confident he has another financial benefactor lined up. What really gets me about this plot is that there's no natural progression for Drake's behavior. He pays Josh's ticket, and then immediately starts extorting him for favors. And if Josh even so much as resists, he threatens to tell Walter about what happened. If Josh had a bomb strapped to his chest, this Drake would defuse the bomb, demand Josh become his slave for the rest of time, and then threaten to place a new bomb on his chest if he complains about it because this episode wants to assassinate his character. I mean, I guess you could argue that Drake was being bitter about failing his road test, but even then, he doesn't seem that torn up about it, and Josh was nice enough to take them out for pizza, making his actions even more unjustified. Also, this is something I forgot to mention in the original review. Megan walks in on the brothers talking about the traffic ticket and almost overhears their conversation, and when they try to cover it up, she says she'll find out and gives a sinister smile. This never comes up again in the episode, so I'm left wondering what the point was. In Steered Straight, she does mention that the brothers got a speeding ticket, but Josh never got one here or in any other episode. Honestly, this story could have been fixed if Drake's punishment didn't come at Josh's expense, and if Drake's motivations were more clear-cut. Because as it stands, it's just an episode where his antagonism is arbitrarily inflated, and it certainly was not worth it.
Okay, I'm Drake. Nice to meet you.
Oh, we've met before. Well, sort of, kind of. I saw you at the supermarket, and I said hi. And you said, do you know where the pickles are? And I said, right over there. And you said, cool. I wrote about it in my diary.
Is it fair if I put an episode that aged like a fruit fly on this list? But to be legit, Drake Bell's real-life actions have no effect on my opinion of this episode. I didn't like it then, and I definitely don't like it now. So, what did #1 fan do to draw my ire? Well, it handles the top of childhood crushes and stalking, and they don't do a fantastic job at it. First, let's start out with Josh's story because it does tie into Drake's. Josh becomes the new scoutmaster for the unisex camping troop, the Campfire Kids, after the scouts drive Walter insane. Strangely enough, Megan is in the troop, even though she never came across as the type of kid to be into that stuff. But anyway, Josh's story is just him being a bad scoutmaster while the scouts all make fun of him. It's not really his fault, since he didn't want to be scoutmaster in the first place. Megan's friend Wendy goes to see Drake, where it's shown that she's actually rather starstruck by him. It's kinda cute, but when Drake gives her an autograph and his guitar pick, she becomes absolutely obsessed with him, scaring off his dates, buying him pickles because of one time where she saw him shopping for them, and even taking a picture of him asleep and then using the photo as promotional material, which she somehow spreads across the whole school. I get she's Megan's friend, but unless there's some tutelage going on that I wasn't made aware of, how the hell did Wendy even pull that off? When Drake rightly tells her out for this, somehow we're made to feel bad for her. Even if she is just a kid, she has to learn to respect boundaries, especially since he already asked her nicely to chill out and it clearly didn't register the first time. One notable thing about this episode is that Megan shows a surprising amount of empathy towards Wendy, proving that the only people she antagonizes are her brothers. She stands up for her when the other scouts laugh at her and tries to cheer her up when she's feeling guilty. But of course, when Drake's about to perform his song on the radio, he finds a note from Wendy apologizing for her actions and gives him his guitar pick back. He decides to go home and play Wendy a song just for her like he initially promised. The ending is nice, but it's so forced. Why couldn't he have just dedicated this song to Wendy on the radio and then gone back home to deal with her? It could just be me overanalyzing things, but the episode feels like it's saying that if you blow up at an obsessive stalker, then you're the asshole. Oh yeah, and the scouts and Drake leave Josh locked in the tent while they go to Chuck E. Cheese's. For what it's worth, Allison Stoner does a good job portraying Wendy, and I wonder if this is the basis for her portrayal of Isabella Garcia Shapiro. But the episode just makes me uncomfortable, even if we didn't know what we know now about Drake Bell. It's got some good jokes though, at least.
Fine, I'll go. 'Cause I've got things to do.
What things?
Things.
Here we go. Now we're getting into the episodes of this show that are truly notorious. And what better way to transition than with this one? Let's talk about Megan Parker, the biggest point of contention in this show. I personally don't mind her at all. I think she's a good character and an antagonist, but I can definitely understand why she grinds people's gears beyond metacontextual properties. Megan was introduced from day one as a prankster, and a smart one. However, characterization marched on, and she went from playing silly gags on the brothers to turning into a goddamn supervillain. Her mere existence flips the show's premise on its head. In terms of comedy, the biggest problem is that she has Joseph Joestar levels of plot armor. I can't think of a single time Megan actually suffered tangible consequences for her actions. She's 100% unstoppable. Drake and Josh is a sadist show, meaning much of the humor comes from watching the characters go through misfortune, usually as a result of their own stupidity or hubris. This doesn't apply to Megan because she can't even lose when she loses. On the off moment she does actually get some torment, she still manages to get off a lot easier than the brothers. And I don't just mean with her parents. The Demonator and Treehouse come to mind. A lot of the people think the brothers never win, and for the most part that's true, but every so often they do get a happy ending, and they make sure it's believable. Some of their antics do pay off, and they actually experience some growth by the end. You don't get that with Megan. She's there to ruin the brothers' day and walk off before she can deal with the consequences. This episode, Peruvian Puff Pepper, is a perfect summation of that. Here, the brothers enter a salsa eating contest to win a big screen TV for their rum. However, when they deny Megan's assistance, she makes their salsa explode and ruin the kitchen. They try to prove to their parents that Megan is a menace, but of course she always has a getaway ready. Eventually, she decides to enter the salsa contest by herself by using the titular Peruvian Puff Pepper. The peppers are rare, so they steal the ones she got from a sketchy individual. They use them for their salsa and win the contest. But wouldn't you know it, when they reveal they used those peppers, it turns out they're banned in North America because they cause kidney failure. As such, they get disqualified, and Megan wins the contest as she tacitly reveals that she planned this whole thing. This episode feels like such a slap in the face, like they're trying to say Megan is a writer's favorite. Who is the guy she got the peppers from? How did she meet him? How did he get them into the country? And why would Josh trust Drake with doing the research? I can only assume that the plot demanded that because Josh would have been able to pick up on the fact that the peppers are banned. Antagonists are great because they provide conflict. But an antagonist still has to be defeated in some way, or else they just get on your nerves. Like Megan got on mine here. Imagine if every Superman comic ended with Darkseid beating the shit out of him. It'd get old very fast. And that's essentially what this episode felt like. A villain who always wins yet again getting what she wants. But hey, at least she's not Sam Puckett.
That's Henry Doheny. He's one of the greatest magicians of all time. He was Blaine Darby's mentor.
You ever seen an episode that you remember being a lot better than you think it is now? Well, that's essentially what this is. Except now that I think about it, I don't know if I ever actually liked The Great Doheny. After all, I wasn't a 27-year-old critic when this came out, so of course I wouldn't have been able to see the problems with it. The Great Doheny uses one of the worst story templates ever, the Mocher. What happens is that Josh's idol, famed magician Henry Doheny, comes to town and befriends Josh. He seems cool at first, but eventually becomes such a burden on the brothers that they try to get rid of him. He even shows up at their house in the middle of the night to go to a club at one point. Then we find out that Henry has been hanging around the brothers because he's hit rock bottom, as no one will ever hire him for magic shows anymore. And my suspension of disbelief has been reduced to atoms. Henry's magic in the show is reality breaking. He's practically Shang Tsung. He can make a sandwich and a teenage girl disappear in thin air. How is he not getting work for the rest of his life? Hell, his mere presence on this show changes the rules of his environment. Drake and Josh does have elements of science fiction in it, but it was still by and large grounded in reality. Having inexplicable magic like Henry's just raises more questions, especially when you introduce it 4 seasons later. The boys and Megan help get Henry's career back on track with a special show, but it looks like he may have accidentally died during it. Which is kind of cool of the bakery to go that route. But no, it turns out he faked his death and didn't let the brothers in on it, which you can guess was Megan's part of the plan. And how does he thank the brothers for helping him restart him again? By giving them fucking yo-yos. Yeah, Megan gets a check for 50 grand, but the actual near 18-year-olds? Fuck them, am I right? Not to mention this episode isn't very entertaining. It's also not very well paced, as everything happens far too quickly. Would it have helped in any way? Not sure. All I know is that the final product is not up to standard.
When are the lobsters gonna be ready?
Yeah, I'm starved. I do not control the speed at which lobsters die.
So, we move on from one awful story template to another. Except I think I hate this template more. The affair obviously follows the trope of being mistaken for cheating, but really, I've seen more than a few episodes fail for similar scenarios. In fact, SpongeBob has done it several times to varying success. They've had characters appear dangerous, but instead they're revealed to be friendly. So how does Drake and Josh fuck it up? Well, Josh suspects that Walter might be having an affair when he starts acting suspicious, and when the brothers spy on him and see him with another woman, it all but confirms their suspicions. They go to confront the woman at a restaurant, humiliate her by dumping food on her, and then when Walter reveals that they weren't dating, he was just in talks to get a higher paying job. The main reason this story template fails, at least for me, is that it treats the watcher like a moron. If you're not playing the misdirection for laughs, then all it comes across as is you saying, "Ha! Did you actually believe we do this thing I told you was gonna happen? What actually happened? You're so dumb!" And this episode doesn't get comedic with the premise that Walter might be cheating. They do try to tell jokes about it, but it's still played very straight. Walter comes home late, lies to Josh about where he was, and then tells him not to tell Audrey what he was up to. That's what gets the wheel in motion. Everything else they do seems to perfectly line up with the presumption that Walter is cheating. Hell, even when they confront the woman, she acts like she's hiding something bad. The biggest misfortune of this episode has to be that the cumin scene is one of the funniest scenes in the show. Meanwhile, it's stuck in this ultimately stupid episode. The brothers do get punished for spying and making assumptions, so I guess the lesson here is don't jump to conclusions. But given the episode's structure and how reasonable the suspicions from the brothers are, I'm not satisfied by the ending. The episode would have worked better if Walter tried keeping up a secret, but didn't look like he was covering up a crime. Then the brothers' presumptions would be unreasonable, like they want us to think they are. But instead, we're left being told that if someone is raising red flags, then we should just ignore them. And if I wanted terrible advice, I go to Psych2Go.
Here,
What's this?
big rock.
What do you want me to do with it?
Kill me!
I don't know why this episode isn't held up with some of the more hated episodes of the show, like Peruvian Puff Pepper or The Great Doheny or Sheep Thrills, which isn't on this list because I don't mind Sheep Thrills that much. It's got some good humor and the story is always on the move. Even if Megan does betray the brothers in the end, I'm still pleased with the episode as a whole. It's not my favorite, but I think it's okay. In an actual standalone review, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. As for the wedding, not to be confused with We're Married, there is nothing redeemable here. Not a fucking thing. The story here is that Drake and Josh are tasked with getting to a wedding with a wedding cake for their mean great aunt. Because Drake is a moron, he gives Josh's travel bag to Craig and Eric, which has Josh's cell phone and the keys to the car they were supposed to take. Drake borrows his friend Trevor's car, but of course it breaks down on them in the middle of nowhere. And then it all gets worse from there. I'm dead fucking serious. Nothing goes right for the brothers in this episode. To Drake's credit, he does try to fix the problem, but it's obvious he doesn't really know what he's doing. The carburetor eats up Josh's Blazer, they hail two strangers and try to pay them to take them to the wedding, but the strangers rob them instead. At one point, they even get a parking ticket. The one moment the brothers actually get help by hailing a mechanic with a tow truck, Drake fucking blows it by making fun of the mechanic's name. Another problem this episode has is that it's a battle episode, meaning it primarily takes place in one location. Season 4 had a weird fascination with battle episodes, since this is like the third one. The other two were Vicious Tiberius and Helicopter. Treehouse also kind of had elements of it, but the brothers don't get trapped in the treehouse until much later. And you know what all of those episodes have in common that this one doesn't? Actual comedy. There are a few good jokes here, mainly from Josh and his frustration, but it's not enough to stave out the frustration I feel from watching the episode. When you torture characters like this, the payoff has to be relieving in some way. We don't get that here. It's just the brothers going through all 10 hells for 22 minutes. And you want to know how this shit show ends? Drake and Josh get the car up and running, but the engine bursts into flames, causing the brothers to just walk away in defeat. Was Matt Fleckenstein in a bad mood when he wrote this? Because it felt like he was. I honestly hope I never have to sit through this one ever again, because it's such a vacuum of likability. Anyway, one episode left and you already know what it is.
Where's the money?
What?
This is a holdup. You give me the money, I ain't playing.
Whoa, just take it easy, man.
Yep, Theater Thug is my most hated episode and I don't even know where to begin with it. It's got a little bit of everything terrible in it. Josh getting tormented for no reason, things happening specifically to move the plot forward, and a shitty and unrewarding ending. Even as a kid, I thought this episode was annoying. The plot here is that Josh portrays a criminal called the Theater Thug on an episode of FBI's Most Wanted. Then literally everyone in San Diego mistakes him for the actual Theater Thug. First, he gets jumped by a bunch of old ladies, which is sort of understandable since they could be senile and not realize Josh isn't the thug. But then he gets jumped by kids and other random civilians. The writing here is so inconsistent and stupid. Right after the reenactment that Josh was in, they literally show an actual picture of the Theater Thug. Unless everyone turned off the TV once the reenactment was over, this problem shouldn't be here. Another problem is that the FBI warning advised civilians not to approach the Theater Thug because he is described as incredibly dangerous. Why would old ladies and kids risk their safety attacking him then? But you know what? The civilians aren't the worst ones here. That honor goes to the cops. The cops keep arresting Josh even after the first time he was mistaken for the Theater Thug. You'd think after one time they'd learn their lesson, especially when they have pictures of the real suspect. Even at the end, where the Theater Thug tries to wrap the premiere while Josh is closing, the cops still manage to fuck it up and arrest Josh, letting the Theater Thug escape. The episode is just really lacking in comedy, and it's expecting you to find Josh repeatedly getting arrested for a stupid mistake entertaining when all it is just infuriating. Honestly, the only problem this episode doesn't have is Megan. In fact, she actually tries to help Josh here by making him a disguise, which the townsfolk conveniently see through anyway. Many of the episodes on this list could have used a revision here and there, but this should have been 86 from the get-go, because I have no idea how an episode like this could have worked. Even if you end it with the Theater Thug getting arrested, it wouldn't make up for the absolute irritating events that preceded it. I would consider reviewing it on its own, but there's so little to talk about here that it probably wouldn't be worth it. It's a badly written episode that's led on the comedy with no payoff whatsoever. Anyway, that's it for this countdown. Maybe next time I'll do a 10 best Drake and Josh episodes. Only time can tell. You know, I have no idea what it is with me and making countdowns at the end of or at the beginning of every year. Maybe it's because I have more free time during the colder seasons, but it's a weird semi-trend on this channel. But anyway, here we are talking about Drake and Josh yet again. In case you're new to this channel, or you just ignore everything I say, Drake and Josh is my favorite Schneider's Bakery show, with iCarly being second. There's really nothing to it. Drake and Josh is a funny show with good characters, and it's good at what it does. Usually. Hell, I even said that in my least favorite list that most of the episodes I didn't like weren't even all that bad. But let's be real, you're not here to listen to me repeat myself. You want to know which episodes are my favorites. So, if you're ready, we're counting down the top 10 best episodes of Drake and Josh.
I ask you guys to do one thing for me. Look at Megan.
She's wet.
Everyone can see I'm wet, you boob.
I'm not sure if we're starting off strong here, but I'm placing the bet early on as a way to familiarize us. It's the quintessential Drake and Josh episode. Nothing too outlandish or groundbreaking, but packed with everything you'd expect from the show. Sibling rivalry, great jokes, and some truly memorable moments. To refresh your memory, the premise is simple. Drake and Josh both fail to take Megan home during a rainstorm, ignoring Audrey's orders due to their personal vices. Josh gets sucked into his video games, while Drake can't stop eating treats. I've always found it kind of funny that Drake, the show's resident Casanova, eats like a total animal in this one. You'd think someone so image-conscious would show a little restraint, but nope, dude eats like he hasn't seen food in days. As punishment, they're grounded for the night. That's when the titular bet is made. Josh has to give up video games, and Drake has to give up treats. Whoever gives in first has to dye his hair pink. Of course, Megan sees the opportunity for chaos and makes them sign a binding contract, locking them in with no escape. The real fun comes from watching the brothers slowly spiral as they try to resist temptation. Josh fiddling with the kitchen appliances because they're the closest thing he has to a game controller is hilarious. And then there's Drake developing a rash from candy withdrawal. An underrated detail that really sells how far he's gone. Personally, I'd struggle way more giving up video games than sweets, so I relate to Josh. But if skipping candy made me look like a zombie, I'd reconsider. Josh's struggle ramps up when his grandma sends him a game sphere, which he can't play without losing the bet. And then there's the brief but brilliant classroom scene. Short, but one of the funniest in the whole series. As the bet consumes their lives, it spreads to the rest of the household. Audrey and Walter start betting on who'll crack first. And Megan, being peak Megan, puts them under the same restrictions as the boys. She's the perfect conniver here. She doesn't just stir the pot, she flips it over and sets the stove to high. Her manipulation has a purpose, though. She's just as invested in the outcome as everyone else is. Only she's got the cojones to actually do something about it. Everything builds to an insane climax where Drake and Josh pull out all the stops to make the other lose. The fact that Josh manages to transform their bedroom into a full-on Willy Wonka trap is simply legendary. Eventually, both of them give in, forcing everyone involved to dye their hair pink. I've seen some fans take issue with the ending where it's revealed Drake just wore a pink wig instead of adhering to the penalty. But honestly, I think it's a brilliant little twist. It shows that, for all of his empty-headedness, Drake can be surprisingly crafty. He outplayed everyone by thinking 2 steps ahead. Even if that ending divides people, this episode as a whole is classic Drake and Josh. A chaotic, hilarious battle of wills that sticks with you. It might not be the flashiest episode, but it's undeniably fun and definitely memorable.
What are you doing? I'm trying to write a song, but I can't find a word to rhyme with orange. Can you think of anything? Yucca! Okay, you have serious rhyming issues.
You know what's weird? Drake and Josh has done 3 wedding episodes. For some reason, that was a theme that the writers liked returning to varying levels of success. And in an even weirder twist of fate, another one of those episodes ended up on one of my lists. But this time, we're not taking a hammer to it. You don't watch The Wedding if you want to have a good time watching Drake and Josh. You watch We're Married. In this episode, Josh's pen pal Yuka visits him from a fictional country called Eudonia, which I'm sure is an XP of some Eastern European country that I can't seem to pinpoint at the moment. However, things don't quite go Josh's way, as Yuka ends up liking Drake more. And since Yuka is hot, Drake takes a liking to her as well. This obviously upsets Josh, and Drake agrees to keep his distance, but when they hear that Yuka is feeling homesick, Josh arranges a ceremony to make her feel welcome. Unbeknownst to him, though, the ceremony he put together was a wedding, and he unwittingly marries Yuka off to Drake. Strangely enough, Yuka is surprisingly cool with the idea of being married so young. I can only assume it's normal for her culture, seeing as her dad says he became a billionaire when he was 19. Speaking of that, Drake tries to get out of the marriage, but things get more complicated when Yuka's parents visit. Drake suddenly changes his tone on the whole thing when he learns her parents are billionaires. But just as Drake is about to revel in marrying into money, Josh tricks Yuka's parents into thinking they ate goat meat. And since goats are to Udonians as cows are to Indians, they get angry and the marriage is annulled. Drake is sad about it, but it was his idea and he had no idea what he'd be getting into anyway. The whole episode had great comedy, but this scene in particular does have quite a few gems of its own. Not only is Bosha a fun thing to interject with, but I'll never forget, "You serve us goat balls?" for as long as I live. Beyond the comedy, I like that this is an episode where Drake loses for good reason. While it was Josh's fault that he got Yuka and Drake married due to his own ignorance, Drake deserves some comeuppance for stealing Josh's friend from him and attempting to actually stay married to Yuka for her money. I'm sure someone out there might try to spin this as a Drake torture porn, but it's really not. And if it is, I sure don't see it. Oh, and fun fact, Ik Glakma makes an appearance in an iCarly episode. It's very blink and you'll miss it, but I appreciate the callback nonetheless. So just make sure to see that movie if you don't want to be an organ donor before your 17th birthday.
I get it, sushi roll.
That wasn't a joke. That was an unfortunate coincidental pairing of words.
I'm a little uncertain on how to approach this one, mostly because the first thing I had to say about it is actually a criticism. I Love Sushi has the single worst title in the entire show. Almost every other episode's title sets you up for what's coming. This one, it's named after a single scene that lasts just a few minutes and doesn't even happen until the tail end of the episode. But we'll get to that later. Despite that glaring flaw, I really do love this episode. It earns its place on the list for all the right reasons. The story kicks off with the brothers signing up for a home makeover contest as a surprise anniversary gift for their parents. Sweet idea, until it turns out the contest was a setup by a gang of thieves, who proceed to rob the Parker Nichols household clean. Right away, the episode delivers some excellent humor. A lot of it is in the form of quick one-liners, but the absurdity of the scenarios adds to the laughs. We're introduced to a new and very short-lived character named Tyler, Megan's so-called assistant prankster. He's not exactly likable. His introduction, involving sticky nachos, is mildly amusing, but Megan ultimately fires him because she realizes she enjoys pranking the brothers more on her own. So, if his presence feels pointless to you, don't worry, the show agrees. He never comes back. Now, I do need to mention one problematic moment. After the brothers win the contest, they've both forcibly kissed two unsuspecting women in celebration. The woman Josh kisses ends up having a deep masculine voice, and the punchline becomes, "Ha! Josh kissed the man!" Whether it was meant to be a trans joke or just a drag gag, the humor hinges on discomfort with gender variance. I won't lie, I still chuckled, but I also recognize how outdated and potentially harmful that kind of humor is today. Once the cops admit that they might not recover the stolen furniture, the brothers take matters into their own hands. They choose to take on odd jobs to earn enough money to replace everything, and the one they get is at a sushi packaging plant. If you're under 75, this scene is a parody of the classic I Love Lucy chocolate conveyor belt sketch. And honestly, I found this version way funnier. The brothers' sheer desperation as the pace picks up is comedy gold. At one point, they give up entirely. Drake even starts throwing sushi at the ceiling. The supervisor deserves a shout out too. The way she delivers every line with absolute authority despite having such limited screen time is iconic. And what's all this leading up to? Absolutely nothing. The brothers return home, and all their furniture is miraculously back. The cops manage to find the burglar's moving van just a few blocks away. Boom, crisis over. So why do I love this episode, even though the resolution technically invalidates the brothers' entire arc? Simple. They tried to do the right thing. Sure, they failed, but their failure was ultimately negated. If the episode had ended with them exhausted from a long, grueling day only to come home to an empty house and have to work another soul-crushing job, it would have just been bleak. Instead, they get lucky, and sometimes that's okay. The story still feels satisfying, especially because the effort and chaos they went through gave us plenty of laughs. The final gag is Megan pulling one last prank on them, but at this point, they're used to it. No harm done. I'll admit, the sushi scene is what solidified this episode's spot on the list, but it's everything around it that makes it shine. It might rank lower than most others, but I Love Sushi is definitely not one to sleep on.
This is like the nicest present anyone's ever given me. Least you could do is act like you care. Dude, this is a news report about the Demonator. The Demonator!
Theme park episodes are pretty formulaic. Most of the time, they involve the main characters getting on giant roller coasters that they're scared of or are too short to ride. The Demonator does not have those problems. In fact, it does something a bit more different. The story here is that the brothers want to ride this new roller coaster called the Demonator, which is an obvious XP for King Taka, going by the way Drake describes it. The ride was initially set to open tomorrow, but by total surprise, the park decides to open the roller coaster tonight. So they get ready to go on it, but their hopes are dashed when their parents force them to watch over Josh's great-grandfather Papa Nichols, who is recovering from surgery and is heavily sedated, while they go to an awards ceremony. Of course, given their mischievous tendencies, this doesn't stop them, as Drake dupes Craig and Eric into supervising him while they go to Mystic Mountain. Megan joins the brothers too, as if she'd ever missed that rodeo. Unfortunately for them, the line to ride the Demonator is massive, and every time it seems like they're making progress, something holds them up. First, Josh needs to piss, and when he tries to regroup with Drake and Megan, he gets busted for cutting the line, causing all three of them to get sent to the back and holding them up for another 2 hours. Then he gets involved in a fight with the mascot. Then Megan sells him and Drake out so she can stay where she is. I guess in her defense, she had literally nothing to do with that. Meanwhile, Papa Nichols wakes up under Craig and Eric's watch and assumes they're Nazis who've captured him. So he's obviously having a dementia spell. The hijinks that ensue are perfect. That's really all I can say about that. The way Papa Nichols is able to move around like he's still in his 20s and muscle around Craig and Eric all night is the exact kind of zaniness I'd expect from this show. What makes this one of my favorites is that this is one of those times where the brothers' victory doesn't have a price. They go through hell just trying to ride the Demonator, and not only do they do that, they even manage to make it home before their parents. Even Megan isn't really bad here. Yeah, she does get them sent to the back of the line in that one scene, but that's really the only thing she does to them. I'm sure someone out there would take issue with the fact that the brothers got away with disobeying their parents and abandoning their great-grandpa, but after something like I Go Nuclear, I much prefer this.
Why don't I meet you by the... Bye.
Who were you on the phone with?
I wasn't on the phone.
Yeah, you were.
We saw you.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, we did.
We were standing right here.
Coming, Mom!
Mom's not even home.
You're not home.
Oh boy, we get to talk about Megan some more. I feel like I may have to defend myself a bit with this entry, given how this is one of the most Megan-centric episodes there is, and as I said the last time I talked about this show, Megan is not a character with a very positive track record, as she's often cited as the fans' least liked element. One of the most hated episodes of the show is Sheep Thrills, because Megan gets the brothers in trouble and suffers no consequences for the things she did. And you know, that's never happened on the show. It's such an anomaly. However, I've elected to go with Megan's first kiss. It's not one of the most memorable episodes, but it's one that deserves recognition. Simple plot, Megan starts seeing a boy, and the brothers get very overprotective. Some people may find it strange that they even give a solitary fuck about Megan due to all the shit she puts them through, but it's been established once or twice that they do care about her in spite of that, and it really shows here. First, they ruin her movie date with Corey, and he decides he can't see her anymore if they're just gonna be this overbearing. This reasonably upsets Megan, and here's why I feel sympathetic towards her. Megan does a lot of crazy shit to the brothers, but she's never gone as far as to ruin something important to them. Think about it. Has Megan ever ruined either Drake's or Josh's relationships? No, she hasn't. She just wants to annoy them. Another thing is, you don't hate the brothers either. They aren't being malicious, their big brother instincts just kicked in, and they had to act out on them. They do try to get Corey to take Megan back, but not before stealing some of their stuff. So yeah, they're definitely trying to show that Corey isn't that great of a guy. And this all gets confirmed when Josh finds Corey at the premiere with a girl named Monica, who he's been dating for a month. So yeah, he's been cheating on Megan for the 7 weeks they were going out. Of course, they can't just tell her that, since she won't believe them, so they bust her movie date again by bringing Monica with them to expose Corey as a cheater. Megan breaks up with him, but the brothers want to teach him a lesson. Sadly, this doesn't go well for them, since Corey knows Kung Fu and absolutely pulverizes them. However, Megan still appreciates what they did for her, and even tells them that she loves them. This episode is great because it shows that the siblings really do care about each other underneath it all. I should also mention that it's very funny, but that kind of comes with the territory. Overall, this episode is a prime example of how to humanize your antagonist correctly, instead of just saying they can be nice sometimes and leaving it at that. Come to think of it, this feels like a sequel to Megan's New Teacher, which also put Megan in the victim seat. I like that episode too, but this one edges it out mainly for the heart it has. But I might have to review that one too someday.
How you doing? My name's Drake. I was just wondering if maybe you guys...
Hey, what's the haps? I'm Josh. Just saying if maybe you wanted to hang out.
It's no secret that Drake is a player. The guy hooks up with a new girl pretty much every single day, and he's not really one to be tied down. That's fine, it's just how he is. But eventually, it was bound to catch up to him. In Who's Got Game, Drake bets Josh to see who can date the most girls in a week. At first, Drake has a home court advantage, but when he meets a girl named Carly, no, not like his driving instructor, things get a little complicated. Drake genuinely falls for Carly, and it gets to the level where she's kind of the only girl he ends up seeing all week. When she finds out Drake only dated her for a bet, she's reasonably angry about it and dumps him. Drake realizes he doesn't want to date anyone else and resolves to get Carly back. However, she won't take him back unless he can prove that he's honest. And since this is Drake we're talking about, that is not an easy task for him. Meanwhile, Audrey shows Josh how to pick up girls, and her advice works so much that he goes on plenty of dates. After one futile attempt to regain Carly's trust, Drake gathers everyone he's ever deceived into the premiere and confesses to every lie he told them in front of Carly. Carly eventually forgives him and takes Drake back, and since Josh ended up scoring more dates, he wins the bet by default. So basically, it's a win-win. This episode marks a major development for Drake. Even if it comes towards the end of the series, it's nice to see him go to these lengths for a girl. It's not often he does this. The only other time he genuinely loved a girl he dated was Tori from Playing the Field. And even then, he was just regretting breaking up with her because he couldn't find anyone else. There's also Susan from the first season, but they were still fleshing out their characters at the time. It was only the 3rd episode after all. And on that note, this entry is a perfect one to segue into my next one. So let's not waste any more time.
Can I please take a break?
You will take a break when Dora finds her way to that banana tree. Come on, Dora, it's right over there. Obre los ojos. Come on.
One thing you should know about me is that I tend to make mistakes in my videos, and here's my chance to rectify an important one. In my least favorites list, I stated that Season 4 had a weird fascination with battle episodes, and then I neglected to mention the most important one, the storm. I don't know why I was so harsh on that element of the wedding, because it being a battle episode is hardly even a point against it. When a battle episode is done right, this is what you get. The story here is that Drake's band is preparing for an important gig at a venue outside of town, but Walter poorly reports a sunny day, only for San Diego to be ravaged by a tropical storm. The storm shows no signs of stopping or even remitting, so the charter bus that was meant to take everyone to the venue gets cancelled, stranding them in the Parker Nichols home. As such, they all struggle to find ways to pass the time. Oh yeah, and Drake is still with Carly by the time of this episode, and she was coming to the show. Things start to get out of hand as everyone gets antsy, and Drake in particular is worried about Carly talking to 2 of his exes who were also invited. And while you think an episode involving everyone stuck in a house during a storm sounds boring, this is anything but that. There is always something happening, and most of it is funny. Eventually, the electricity goes out, and they're forced to rely on a crank TV to watch Walter's weather report. And this is around the time the episode gets more memorable. Crazy Steve watching Dora and saying what we're all thinking will never not be funny. And you gotta love how two thugs found the time and patience to rob Walter of his shirt and jacket during what is practically a hurricane. I do feel bad that Walter was dragged back out to do storm chasing alone, but he does end up relatively okay. All of this culminates in a perfect ending. By now, everyone's just accepted that the show's not happening, but Helen manages to perk everyone's spirits up by showing them how to have fun without electricity. She gets everyone to stamp their feet and clap their hands to Queen's "We Will Rock You." So while things didn't go according to plan, they at least ended on a high note. This kind of reminds me of my birthday party 2 years ago, where we couldn't go bowling but found ourselves enjoying games of pool instead. If I had to nitpick a bit, it's that Josh is noticeably absent here. He's only in the prologue. After that, he's just gone. It would have been nice to see him here, but the episode is still fantastic on its own.
Dude, it's been like 5 days. When are you gonna stop being mad at me?
I told you I'm not mad at you. I'm done with you.
Josh.
I mean it.
This show is mainly heralded for its humor, but not enough people acknowledge how good it is at doing drama. And this is quite possibly the most dramatic episode. It's also the most predictable one. I don't mean that it's formulaic, I mean that an episode like this makes the most sense in context. The premise of Josh is Done is that Josh gets fed up with Drake's selfish ways and disowns him almost entirely. Now, the episode has a reputation of being depressing, and I really don't think it's earned. Sure, it does get that way toward the end, but it's more heavy on the drama than an outright tearjerker. And while they have no need to justify this episode's premise even further, they manage to up Drake's selfishness here. He blows off Josh twice, and once is for an important exam that he caused him to miss. Of course, since this is Drake we're talking about here, it doesn't sink in with him right away that Josh is serious about disowning him, and he futilely attempts to make Josh get over himself. But Josh stands firm in his resolve. Even better, Josh's life significantly improves without Drake constantly stressing him out. He becomes more sociable, his rash disappears, and he gets more respect at work. On the flip side, Drake's life worsens, as it becomes apparent that he's relied on Josh for so much. And here's the important part. Josh makes it clear that he's not angry or vengeful. He's just done. He's not doing this to teach Drake a lesson. He's only putting himself first after years of compromising his life to meet Drake's lackadaisical attitude. Drake refuses to believe that Josh is better off without him, but even Megan is unable to deny that he is. Believe it or not, this episode comes full circle. During chemistry lab, Drake is paired up with Clayton after Josh replaces him with another lab partner. Clayton is an admittedly uncomfortable portrayal of a disabled person, but back on track. Drake messes up their experiment because he can't understand him and is forced to take a disinfection shower. This causes Drake to surrender and gives a powerful apology to Josh in front of everyone. Drake Bell's acting here is commendable to this day, and this scene almost makes me forget I'm watching a TV show. Best part about this scene is that after Drake apologizes, Josh doesn't immediately forgive him. Of course, the episode ends with the brothers reuniting, but there was still a moment of ambiguity, if even for a moment, that whether or not Drake was truly worthy of forgiveness. After all, they remind everyone that Drake only feels bad when something he wants gets taken away from him, so he gets deconstructed here, more so than ever before. And it's done in a way where when Josh lets Drake back into his life, you feel it's earned. I also relate to this episode a lot more now, since I have my own experience of cutting a narcissist out of my life and feeling so rejuvenated in the days that followed. My life didn't turn around like Josh's did here, but I'm better off than where I was, and that's good enough for now. If you've ever been in a situation where someone takes more than they give, then I think you'll enjoy this episode too.
Hey, didn't you win last year?
Actually,
He won last year and the year before. That's 2 years in a row. And when he wins this year, that'll be a three-peat.
do I know you?
No. I love you. Bye.
Here's a predictable entry. Quite possibly the most predictable entry on this list, actually. It's no secret that Drake and Josh butt heads a lot, as in, they do it literally all the time. But when they work together, man, do they make an excellent team. And Blues Brothers is quite possibly the pinnacle of that. In this episode, Josh is invited to join Walter to be on TV to help do a weather forecast as part of Bring Your Kid to Work Day. At first, he's really excited about it, but Megan gets in his head about the possibility of him embarrassing himself on live TV. And as per Murphy's Law, what can go wrong does. And Josh has a nervous breakdown. Quite a serious one, too. Afterwards, Josh can't go anywhere without being made fun of for it. and he's unwilling to even show his face in public. Nothing can make him happy, not even the Blues Brothers, which he loves. As for Drake, he's preparing with his band for a talent show when he's confronted by his rival Hewitt, who will also be performing. Things get even worse when Hewitt steals Drake's song at the night of the show, leaving him without options. His only hope is for Josh to join him in a surprise performance. Josh initially refuses, but soon he comes to the rescue to join Drake for a cover of Soul Man, causing them to win to the sound of roaring applause. There isn't much I can say here. This episode's fantastic. It's a great lesson in conquering your insecurities, and it's always nice to see Josh get what he wants. Sure, Megan doesn't face any consequences for screwing with Josh's head, but that hardly matters. What's important is the final product. Also, I don't know about you guys, but this is how I learned of the Blues Brothers. In fact, I thought they just made them up for this episode. It kind of feels weird how this is the penultimate entry, and I have so little to say. But in a way, that's the beauty of the episode. It's straightforward and simple, but still managed to be one of the best. It really goes to show, sometimes less is more.
Stupid big shrimp. It's all your fault. Tell your friends!
It might be cheating to call the series finale the best episode of a show, but I really don't care. Really Big Shrimp isn't just a perfect way to end Drake and Josh, since it would still be spectacular even if the show had gone on for a few more seasons. Part of its brilliance is that it doesn't feel like a finale. Despite being a double-length special, it avoids being overly theatrical or dramatically overblown, unlike I Goodbye, which tied up loose ends for spin-off bait. There's some debate about whether Really Big Shrimp is the actual finale, since it wasn't the last episode to air. That honor goes to Dance Contest. However, while Dance Contest is a solid episode, Really Big Shrimp serves as the definitive conclusion to the Drake and Josh story. Yes, there is also the Christmas movie, but the less said about that, the better. This special ties together threads from Drake and Josh Go Hollywood and The Storm. The story kicks off with Drake performing for Alan, a record company VP, and landing a record deal. But Alan turns out to be a con man, duping Josh into signing away creative control of Drake's music. Alan remixes Drake's song into corporate slop, leading to Drake firing Josh as his manager. Meanwhile, things go downhill for Josh. Mindy, who he's still broken up with, becomes the assistant manager at the premiere, much to his annoyance. Interestingly, Josh is the real catalyst of the episode. His actions drive the plot more than Drake's. Some fans criticize the special for making Drake seem hypocritical in his anger towards Josh. After all, Drake often gets Josh into trouble, so what right does he have to complain? To the special's credit, Josh calls this out, but I don't see it as a major issue. For one, Josh is supposed to be the smart one, and even Drake thinks it was ridiculous to sign a contract without reading it. If Drake thinks you've done something dumb, it's time to reevaluate. Plus, Drake already apologized for everything Josh has done. His payback warranty has expired. Josh, desperate to fix his mistake, pulls one last gambit. He switches Alan's terrible mix with the original track before it airs during a Super Bowl commercial. The plan works, but Alan threatens legal action since Josh violated their contract. Thankfully, the record label president fires Alan and signs Drake to a new deal, with Josh promising to read the fine print this time. The takeaway? Breaking the rules is fine if it's profitable, the good old-fashioned American way. With Drake's storyline wrapped up, the special shifts to Josh. Mindy reveals she took the Jap at the premiere to be close with him again, and regrets their breakup. Later, at Helen's wedding, Josh and Mindy reconcile, and Helen promotes Josh to manager after Mindy quits. The special ends with Drake performing Makes Me Happy, followed by a fun callback to The Amanda Show as an epilogue. Everything about Really Big Shrimp encapsulates what made Drake and Josh great. Zany hijinks, sharp humor, and heartfelt drama worth investing in. It's the perfect send-up for the brothers, and the show as a whole. At least, that's how I see it. And that does it for this list. Do you agree with my picks? What are your choices for the 10 best episodes of the show? Leave a comment if you like, and be sure to tune in next time.